Welcome to third year post basic BSc nursing students who are enrolled in the daily study center at RAK College of Nursing. We have completed the concepts of management and started understanding the functions of management and their integration with how they can be implemented in the nursing services. We completed the planning of nursing services, organizing nursing services and patient care, and integrated the staffing. And today we are going to discuss the fourth function, that is directing. It is very important to understand what is directing, what are the elements of directing, and why it is important for a nurse to understand the concept of directing. Directing is a function which is initiated at the point of execution of plan to communicate the goals, policies and plans which are being made by the top level administrators, motivate the people to do the work to the best of their abilities and to reward them, and in case punishment is required, it is also being given, not just to punish them but to make them understand that work is important and maybe give them incentives if they do something again good. Then supervising what is being done and giving the instruction. Leading the group so that they do the work, achieve the objective and be a role model. Keeping this brief in mind, today we will discuss directing, supervision, communication and motivation. Already you have read in your first year and you have gone through all the units. We will just briefly highlight some of the important things. I will request Ms. Sukriti to explain us about the concepts, importance and elements of direction in brief.
So, as we just mentioned, directing is a management process which involves certain actions including instructing the people, guiding your staff, motivating them, leading them and counseling them. Directing means that we tell the staff what to do and we see that they are doing it or not. That is, we keep a track of their actions, and if they are going in a wrong direction, we guide them back on track. Directing is the execution function out of all the functions of management. All the other functions like planning, staffing or controlling, they provide a framework, whereas this is the function where a role of a manager or supervisor comes into most importance. Directing is performed at every level in an organization and it is a continuous process. Say if your employee is not performing a task correctly today, or he has any problem because of which he is not able to perform the task efficiently, you cannot say that, okay, I will look into it and give you feedback and give you proper counseling at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter or year. You have to make sure that it is resolved today or as soon as possible. So it is a continuous process which goes on all the time and every day. And it is a process which flows from top to bottom. What that means is somebody at the top, a supervisor, will direct his or her subordinate. Talking about the importance of this process, first is that it initiates action to achieve the organizational objectives. What it means is it allows the employees in the organization to work. For example, as an employee, if I have a doubt, I can go to my manager or supervisor who will clear my doubt, which will allow me to perform my task effectively. Second, it integrates the effort of individual employees into the organizational goals. That is, the person who is directing, the superior or the manager, overlooks the functions performed by his team, and so he makes sure that every individual is making efforts which are in line with our organizational goals and where we want to go as an entire organization. It keeps our work and effort in line. Third, it guides the employees to work at their full potential. A good manager motivates the people and leads them in a way that increases their confidence, gives them support and gives them encouragement, and also counseling if they have any problem due to which they are not able to perform, so that they can work to the best of their abilities. It allows change. That is, in an organization, the external environment would change, and so the change have to happen in an organization. It is very necessary and important. No organization can move in a same way forever. Maybe due to some economic changes or policy changes of government, or your competitive organization is doing something different, or customers have started wanting something different. So an organization has to change. But people, the employees in the organization, would resist change out of fear. Maybe because what will happen to my job? Will I be fired or demoted? Or how will I cope up? I will not be able to do the new roles. In this place, the role of a manager is very, very important. He directs the people, motivates them, leads them, and talks to them so that the resistance decreases and instead the employees start to cooperate. Lastly, directing also provides stability in an organization. As a manager, the person is taking care of all of his employees, resolving the conflicts between employees. This helps to maintain good interpersonal relationships so that between all departments, all units and all individuals there is cooperation and commitment towards the organization. Directing has 4 key elements, which are leadership, which is communication, motivation and supervision.
Thank you, Sukriti. Today we will discuss about supervision in detail, because communication and motivation they have gone through in their first year also, and they had undergone the units also. But it is important for the students to understand. You can see what 4 crucial elements of the directing are, because you have already made a plan, you have organized the work, but now it is the time to execute the plan, because this is very important. Unless your execution is good, you won't be able to achieve the objective. So as a manager, directing employees in the organization is important. You can the way she has explained, there are 4 important elements are there. You have to communicate with them, you have to motivate them, you have to lead them, be a good leader and supervise them. So what is supervision? I hope all of you understand what is supervision. Maybe in most of the hospital, what I have seen, the supervision in actual terms, very few administrators do overseeing. That is, it involves advising, helping, inspiring and leading your employees. How many supervisors do all these functions? I remember some of the examples even of my student days, and even when I was working, supervisors mostly just come in rushing, find some faults and go away. No solutions are given. But there are good supervisors also. I remember when I was working in the Delhi government, there was one deputy director who came. He used to first make a plan, see the situations, plan of visits. Then he used to go there, see the records, speak to the staff, do the discussion, find out their problems. Then he used to go back and find out the solutions. After finding out the solution, he used to again go back for supervision. Are they now actually able to work now? What is their output now? So you will find a good supervisors and a supervisors who still need training in supervisions. So keeping this in background, I will request Ms. Sukriti to explain us the meaning, concept and the importance of supervision in general. Then I will discuss what are the objectives of supervision in hospital.
So supervision is made out of two words, that is super, which means over, and vision is to see. So overseeing the efforts of your subordinates, that what are they doing, what task are they performing and how are they performing, is supervision. Why are we overseeing the task? We are seeing with the aim to guide their efforts, to keep a track of what they are doing and to make sure that they are working in a way that will help the organization achieve the targets that have been set up and the objectives that have been defined by the top management at the planning stage, and see that they are doing the work effectively and efficiently also. That is, they are using the resources optimally. Resources in terms of money, in terms of machines, and also their effort and time. So, for example, if I see that a subordinate is able to do the work, but he or she is taking 5 hours to do maybe a 1 hour job and struggling with it, why? Then that is my job as a supervisor to go and check that why the time and effort is being so overutilized, so much wasted. Maybe the reason is that the employee is not able to understand some technology, what they have in the organization to use it, and is instead doing the work manually. Then I need to, once I have identified the cause, I need to provide solution. That is, maybe I can give some training to help them overcome it.
Maybe here not only the technology like in our hospital, maybe the person do not know how to do the procedure, or maybe do not know, they have not seen that type of patient or machines, because in our hospitals when the staff come, they are being trained in different institutions all over India. So reasons can be many. I think what you want to explain that.
Right. So as a supervisor, it's my duty to make sure that the efforts and resources are very much optimally utilized. And if they are not, then take the corrective actions and provide solutions so that my team is able to work properly and efficiently. A supervisor is a role that is immediately above the workers and the employees in the scalar chain, that is in the hierarchy of the organization. So this role is very important because it is the role which is most directly in touch with the people who are actually performing the jobs.
Like in hospital, you have nursing officer, previously known as staff nurses. Immediately above them, there is senior nursing officer or ward in charge. It is the duty of the ward in charge to see that day-to-day supervision is being done. Then above ward in charge or senior nursing officer is your ANS, unit heads, because ANS has to be a very good supervisor to actually advise and oversee the work of all the wards under her.
So from this we also derive the importance of supervision function. First importance, most important, is that a supervisor is a link between the workers and the top management. It is supervisor's duty to communicate from the information from both the sides. From top management, he must communicate the goals and objectives set by top management, the policies defined, what are the actions, disciplinary actions that may happen, all of this information to communicate it to the workers so that they are clear about the rules and policies of the organization. And also, in the similar way, workers may have some grievances or they may have some problems and to make sure that these are communicated to the top management so that they can be resolved. Then a supervisor ensures that the work is performed, so by guiding and motivating the employees and the workers. Since he is the first point of contact with the employees, it is his duty as a supervisor to ensure that work is being performed and there are no stoppages in the work. He also builds an efficient team of workers by providing certain trainings or counseling or giving feedback to the employees so that they can correct their mistakes and also see where they are going right and continue doing that. Then a supervisor gives high morale to the employees by giving a good leadership. And also, lastly, supervisor maintains the group harmony and the group unity by performing the role of a good leader, of conflict manager, so that interpersonal relations are maintained.
I think this is very important in the hospitals where the conflicts arises within the professionals, with other professionals, and especially with the patients and the families. I think with this importance, you can visualize even the role of a nurse administrator. If they are supervisor, what is their role even? Very nicely you have explained the objectives and with inbuilt the roles also. So now I will just tell you what are the objectives of supervision in hospital of the nursing service department. The nursing service department, the main important objective is to provide need-based, comprehensive, quality patient care and to deliver the satisfactory care to the patient so that when the patient goes, they are satisfied with the care. Then to develop staff and increase their efficiency, motivate them to work. In case they find any problem, help them, guide them, do not find the faults. That is very important. If there is any fault, that means that fault has to be identified. That reason has to be identified of the fault and try to remove that fault by giving training or whatever the administrative mechanism can be taken into consideration. To interpret the policies, plans and other methods and all the orders to the staff below you so that they get all the information and able to achieve the objectives of an organization. To get the work done as a team member. As you know, in hospital, we have to work within a team of nurses, within a team with the other professionals. So the health team concept, that working in a key team, coordinating with all the departments, coordinating with co-workers, co-professionals, that is very important. Then to solve the problems, conflicts, negotiations with the unions, that is a very important aspect. To monitor and evaluate the services at the end so that whatever the gaps are, that can be identified and removed. Then supervision is of two types, direct and indirect. Direct is when all the time supervisor is there with the workers, like your senior nursing officer who is immediately above the nursing officer can do a direct supervision. But ANS cannot be there whole time because she has so many units and other administrative duties. So she is doing a indirect supervision. She will go through the records, speak to the senior nursing officer, your doctors, co-workers and go through your performance anecdotal records. Then she will have a view that which staff needs more supervision or training in the future. Then there are four types of styles of supervision. That is autocratic, democratic, bureaucratic and laissez-faire. I think all of you have read this, but still I will give some important points regarding these four. Autocratic means here the supervisors enforces and tells this you have to do it. Rarely take feedback from the subordinates. All decisions are taken by the supervisors. And Sometimes even the members are not being trusted. They will say, unless I see with my own eyes, I cannot trust you. There is feeling of that I am always right. The supervisor will think like that. But sometimes in emergency situations, in disaster situation, this type of leadership is, or you can say supervision is good, because they have to handle the emergency or disaster and see that work is being done. Then democratic supervision. Here the supervisor and the employee sit together, discuss the performance, discuss the issues and take a decision together, come out with a consensus that what was wrong and what can be done. It is like a participatory supervision. And here subordinates can give the suggestion and the motivation and the interest of subordinate will increase. But every time this method cannot be a good supervisory method. Then bureaucratic supervision. In bureaucratic, it is mostly rules and regulations are being followed. Line of authority, line of communication, hierarchy is being given importance. Immediate supervisor has the authority to do the supervision, to take decisions, but here again the human touch is missing, and mostly rules, whatever the rules and regulations says, that is being followed during by the supervisors. Laissez-faire is where the supervisor thinks my staff is competent, experienced, motivated to work and do not interfere in their work. They will do supervision from far and they are happy and staff is also motivated. So Kriti, would you like to add something here?
I think the one point is we cannot say that any one method is on top of the other or better than the other.
Yeah.
It is not only like the need that you mentioned according to the situation, and also for different organizations, depending on the kind of people you have to understand the people, see their competencies and what they are comfortable with, and that is also a big determinant of what type of supervision you should follow.
And even then the policies of the institution has to be kept in mind. That is very important. Then what are some of the qualities of a supervisor? I will here request all of you to remember your supervisors. You must have, all of you are working in the hospital since last 10 to 20 years. And some of you have experience of different hospital, also private hospital, government hospital and various organizations. You must have met some good supervisors and some may not be so good. So try to recall what qualities they had and what qualities you want to inculcate as a good supervisor. Some of the qualities are good communication skills, good interpersonal skills, empathetic and compassionate, ability to delegate the work, flexible when required, be confident, have positive attitude towards self and others and towards the work. Then human touch or human skills are there. Good management skills are there. Good critical thinking and analytical thinking your supervisor have. Problem solving skills, be creative and innovative. Management of time, observation skills, willingness to learn, accept others and accept self. Unless a person accepts oneself as a professional, they cannot accept others also. So it is very important. These are some of the qualities which a supervisor should have. So Kriti, will you like to add some?
I think this is quite important and quite comprehensive.
Okay, thank you so much. There are some principles a supervisor should keep in mind. Justification or need for supervision. It should be clear. Don't just go for the sake of supervision that I have to complete my task when I am a supervisor. You should have some objective why you are going, whom you want to supervise, why you want to supervise. Then set time frame. Set a schedule for the supervision. You should keep in mind span of control, how many people you can supervise. Then select the style as per the need, as per the situation, as Sukriti has explained. Listen to the subordinates when you go for the supervision. Do not just go on speaking that you are speaking and do not give the chance to the subordinates to speak. Never decide anything in hurry. Or suppose you are angry, something is going wrong and you take decision immediately. And do not argue when you go for supervision. If there is something wrong, you just note down. Go back, go through the records, discuss the issues, then you take decisions. There are some tools for supervision. You can do individual conference, group conference with the staff. You can have anecdotal records, observation checklist, clinical checklist, work checklist, rating scales, performance appraisal, or as per your institution, you can have your own formats. Or you can design some good formats if you think the existing formats are not good. There are some steps of supervision. Suppose when you go for supervision and staff every time says, we do not have these things, you do not provide us training, you do not provide us resources, and you are coming for the supervision and saying we are not able to work. But it is very important to first see you provide the employees with the resources they need for the job. You provide your employees the training they need for the job. Help them to understand the goals and objectives and improve their performance if required. You become a resource, good resource for them. Then you go for supervision and hold them accountable if they do something wrong, because now you have provided all the resources, all the training, strengthen them for whatever you became, and you were guiding them, helping them. Still, if they are not able to do it, then your supervisor has to see what is wrong, and then you have to decide what action to be taken. There are some stages of supervision also. 3 stages made: preparation for the supervision, then supervising, and then doing a follow-up. During preparation, you have to go through all the documents, all the reports, job description, and what is the old record of your staff. Then identify the priorities, make plan and make a visit schedule. Then go for supervision. Use some supervisory tool, checklist. Have right objectives why you are going for supervision. Don't depend on one source, only your observation. Take the views of the immediate supervisor. Take the views of the people who are working with that person. Maybe sometimes the views of the patients whom your staff is looking after. Sometimes observation is without telling an employee. You go suddenly and do a supervision. Sometimes you inform and go. So you have to see when you can inform them and when not to inform them. So it should be mixed method. Then you do write your follow-up. You do write a report. Discuss with your senior. Discuss with the immediate supervisor. Even discuss with the employee, I think. Because they should know what are the weak points and the strong points. And if the strong points are there, they should be appreciated. And weak points, they should be taken care of. Then do a follow-up visit again. Don't depend on one visit. Try to do a follow-up also. These are some of the 3 stages of supervision. Then nowadays there is a concept of supportive supervision. I think with the word you can understand what do you mean by supportive supervision. The approach of supportive supervision is emphasis on mentoring, joint problem solving. There is a two-way communication. That means employee and the supervisor can communicate with each other. Resolution of problem together. optimize allocation of resources, promote high standard of teamwork, encourage to achieve the objectives. I will just list down some of the steps. First, define the objectives. Make supervisory plan and supervisory schedule. Preparation of the supervisor. A supervisor also needs some preparation, and the employee also needs some preparation. They should be informed in advance. They should be given the job description, protocols, SOPs which need to be followed. Then implement your plan what you had made for supervision. Give constructive feedback when you go there and in your report, and facilitate the skill and the knowledge building if required. Compile your report, discuss with all the stakeholders. Again, follow up and take a corrective measures and see that the work is being done and you are supervising your employee in a effective way. So in nutshell, this we have discussed about the concept of supervision, importance, what type of tools are being used, type of supervision, type of supervisors. I think the way we have discussed and Sukriti has explained you can now write a role of a nurse supervisor in the hospital. Now I will request her to explain us about communication. Just in brief, what is the meaning? What are the types, that is formal and informal communication and effective communication?
So communication, another element of directing. It is a process through which people share their information, share their views or ideas and opinions to come to a common understanding and get a response from the other person. Communication is very important because as a supervisor or as a superior manager, my ability of how well I can direct, that depends on the communication skills. So if I do not have good communication skills, my views, I will not be able to express my views, my opinion to the people and to my staff. I will not be able to give them clear instructions and make the targets clear. This will, what it will do is, it will make them not be able to understand what is to be done, how it is to be done, and what is expected out of them in the organization. So as a manager, all of my professional knowledge would go to waste if I am not able to communicate it properly to my staff members. It is of two major types, that is formal communication and informal communication. Formal communication is the one that flows through the official channels in the organization, that is through the scalar chain. Then we have informal communication. It flows in a way that completely disregards the authority, that is, it flows in any direction. Formal communication can be oral or it can be written. The key thing is that it is usually recorded and stored and filed so that it can be referenced later on also if it is needed. Formal communication, like we said, flows through the scalar chain in the organization, that is, goes through the hierarchy that is predefined as per the organizing structure. Therefore, the flow is quite slow. If somebody wants to communicate something to the top, it has to go through all the levels of authority. It is slow, but it is authentic information.
Like if you want to give any information to your nursing superintendent, unless you take the permission, you have to go through proper channel. That means your senior nursing officer, ANS, DNS, then to nursing superintendent. That's what she is trying to explain you.
Right. And the key objective of formal communication is to pass out the instructions so that the organizational objectives are achieved. When we compare it to informal communication, it is the communication that, like we said, flows in any direction, that we call grapevine communication also, because like a grapevine, it can go in any direction. It is usually oral, not written. It flows fast in the organization. For example, two people, as somebody who is my friend in the organization, maybe while I'm in the canteen or cafeteria or in commuting to the organization, I may talk to them. So it's quite fast. However, it is not necessary that it may be authentic.
But sometimes it is important also. It gives you certain clues what you never get in a formal system.
Yes, because people are more relaxed in the terms of informal communication. So they do not think what will be the repercussions or consequences.
Yes.
That if I say something to my supervisor, so I will be more controlled.
Yeah.
So in this way it also helps, supervisors can make use of it to get the reactions of their staff and to know that.
I have seen some supervisor, they have one or two favorite people who sit and get the informal feedbacks for them in the hospitals.
So this way it can be utilized also. And why it is done? It is done to accomplish the personal and the social needs of the people. When we talk about formal communication, we said it flows as per the hierarchy. So this way we can define the formal communication in two broad ways, vertical or horizontal. Vertical communication is further of two types. It can be from top to bottom, that is the communication that the superiors give to their subordinates. For example, instructions on what to do or policies that or rules of the organization, like the leave policy or the attendance policy. Then we have from bottom to top, that is what the subordinates convey to their superiors. For example, I may request for a leave to my superior. That is a bottom to top formal communication. Then we have horizontal communication, which happens across the different departments of people of the same position or same level.
Like all the ANS in the hospital, I can say, because there are ANS departmental heads, they can have some communication or meeting if there is a common concern.
Right. So this would be termed as a horizontal communication. Then talking about effective communication. To have a good effective communication, it is very important that both the sender who is communicating and the receiver, the one who is listening or reading the message, both of them perform certain actions. That is, from sender's point of view, the sender should understand the receiver's perspective, put the message in a language that the receiver would understand, or of a level that the receiver's intellect and capacity would help him to understand. The transmission of the message should be proper.
Especially when you communicate with your patients. Because your patients are coming from different social, economic and the language backgrounds. It's very important to effectively communicate with them. When you communicate with your professionals, doctors and nurses, you have to communicate in a different language. That's what I think she is trying to explain.
So you have to look at the capacity of the listener, of the receiver, and adjust accordingly.
So, Sukriti, can you explain in brief something about motivation? Because they have already learned about the Maslow's hierarchy in their first year in nursing foundation. I just want them, they can recall it. Why motivation is important and what is the importance of Maslow's hierarchy?
Sure. So motivation is the process with which we stimulate people to act in certain ways so that they can satisfy their needs, and also we help to achieve the objectives. We get them to perform certain actions which will help the organization to achieve the objectives. We can do so by making use of certain motivators which are the incentives. They can be financial in nature, like giving a bonus or giving a pay increase, or non-financial.
I think it's again depend on the policy. Like in the government sector, the financial incentives are very less. It is mostly the certificate or recognition or sending appreciation or sending them for training, or sometimes posting them in a place where they are doing a good work.
Yes. So this would depend, like we just discussed, on the policies and also on the different people. What would motivate them? So it is an internal feeling, motivation. It depends on the desires and aspirations of people, and it influences their behavior. Second, it produces certain goal-oriented behavior. For example, if I want to get a bonus, or maybe I want to get promoted, I would work in certain way to increase my performance so that I can achieve my goal, that is promotion. Now, motivation can be positive or negative, both. Positive motivation is giving them awards or appreciation or maybe a promotion, whereas a negative motivation would be fear. That is, if you do not do it properly or if you do not accomplish the task within a deadline, for example, then you may face certain consequences. You may have disciplinary action, or you may get fired or demoted.
I will just share one example here. Suppose you are going for a long leave. You have to follow certain things before proceeding for leave. Handing over the keys, records, giving a feedback. Because I remember one case, there was one sister in one of the hospital in the operation theatre. When she went for leave, she never handed over the keys. It was a big problem for the hospital. So I think when you do something, when you are motivated, like you are got the leave, you are entitled for something. But on the other hand, you also as an employee have certain responsibilities, I think.
Yes. So. And then motivation is also a complex process, because no two people are same. No two people would react uniformly to a certain motivator. It is possible that I would react very differently than my fellow colleague. So, and then discussing about theory, it is the need hierarchy theory that is based on certain human needs that exist in everyone. At the bottom, the basic needs are basic physiological needs like hunger and shelter, which an organization satisfies by giving a basic salary to the employees. Once this is satisfied, second need is the safety and security need. People want to feel secure and protected, which an organization can give the employees by giving job stability, stability of income, and pension plans. Then we have social needs, that is, people want to feel a sense of belongingness and affection. This happens by informal organizations, when people form good interpersonal relations in the organization. Once this is accomplished, then people have esteem needs, that is, they need some status and self-respect. This is achieved by giving them certain job titles, by promoting them to different positions, higher positions, giving them recognition or appreciation. Like we mentioned, some certificates you can give, awards you can give them. And then lastly, we have self-actualization needs. That is, people want to grow and feel fulfilled. An organization can achieve this by giving them a platform where they can realize their full potential and take initiatives.
Thanks, Sukriti. I think it was very nicely explained by you, the Maslow's hierarchy, and with the examples. I think I thanks on behalf of the students the way you have explained us about the directing, supervision, communication and motivation. So today we have learned about directing as an element of function of management, and three elements of directing, that is communication, motivation and supervision. I think you must have cleared about the concepts regarding all these things, and still if you have question, you can mail us in the WhatsApp group or mail us on the email, whatever is convenient to you. Please give your feedback on the session, and thanks for attending this session. Thank you.